There are still more questions and answers about the investigation into the death of a WSU freshman at a fraternity party. Sam Martinez died a year and a half ago at an Alpha Tau Omega pledge event.
Now, as of tonight, more than a dozen current and former fraternity members are facing misdemeanor charges for their involvement in what happened that night. But none of them are facing more serious charges. Police tell me they do have a pretty good idea of what happened the night Sam died. So we wanted to know what happened in this investigation and why are those involved in Sam's death not being held directly responsible.
It was very challenging in a number of different ways.
Pullman Police Chief Gary Jenkins has seen hundreds of investigations over the years, but none quite like this one.
And we talked to, I believe, over 70 potential witnesses. Most of the witnesses are not Pullman residents. These are the types of interviews that we don't want to do over the telephone. Also, there were many of the witnesses were reluctant witnesses and didn't want to get their friends into trouble.
According to the police report, WSU freshman Sam Martinez died the morning of November 12th after a night of drinking with current and prospective members of the Alpha Tau Omega fraternity. It was a Monday night. Records state Sam and at least two other fellow fraternity members started the night with a half-gallon bottle of rum. By around 10:30, witnesses say it was almost empty. One member described Sam as really drunk. Another recalled seeing him being carried down the stairs around 11:30. They said Sam was eventually put to bed next to a trash can. He was discovered not breathing the next morning around 8:30. The coroner later determined Sam had already been dead for several hours, the result of acute alcohol poisoning. His blood alcohol content was 0.372, almost 5 times the legal limit for an adult, though Sam was just 19 years old.
If just one person had stopped or said stop, if one person had called for help when Sam was in trouble, Sam would still be with us right now.
Pullman police immediately started building a case for criminal charges. They got search warrants for Sam's iPhone after his parents gave permission to access it. But it turns out that would not be enough.
We did not have the expertise or equipment to be able to do that ourselves. And so we found a vendor that is a nationally recognized vendor. And they kept working on it, and they never were able to crack the phone.
Pullman police tell me they strategically allowed the 1-year statute of limitations on hazing charges expire, believing they would ultimately find enough evidence on Sam's phone to be able to pursue felony charges for manslaughter. It's why they brought in that outside vendor, Celebrite, in hopes of cracking Sam's phone's security. But here's the thing, even if police are able to get past a phone's security measures, they often need to get into individual messaging apps like Facebook or Snapchat. The police chief tells me there's no way to even know someone's Snapchat username unless they're given that information. And in this case, he says Snapchat was never able to give detailed enough information about Sam's specific account or messages. Detectives say they saw notifications from Snapchat on Sam's phone from the morning after he died, but they were never able to get in and read them, even though they believe that information could have dramatically changed this investigation.
It's not a new problem. Snapchat and other apps, even tech giants like Apple, have been increasingly reluctant to share security bypass information. After 2 terrorist shootings in San Bernardino and Pensacola, Apple famously refused to create a backdoor for law enforcement despite a court order saying their promise of privacy and encryption are paramount and that a backdoor, even for police, could weaken security for millions of customers. Snapchat, too, is highly protective of customer privacy, but is also limited by the short-term nature of its platform. According to its law enforcement guide online, snaps or messages are permanently deleted and unavailable once they are opened. If a snap is unopened, it may remain on Snapchat servers, but only for up to 30 days. Pullman PD did get search warrants for both Snapchat and Facebook content back in February of 2020, 3 months after Sam's death. But both came back with no new evidence for Sam's case.
It's just unbearable.
In the meantime, Sam's family has filed a lawsuit against Washington State University and the national organization of Alpha Tau Omega, saying the culture of hazing is what resulted in their son's death. 15 current or former members are now charged with furnishing alcohol to a minor, a misdemeanor that carries a maximum penalty of 1 year in jail and a $5,000 fine.
These charges are very minor charges against these 15 people.
After the prosecuting attorney reviewed this case, they determined that the only charge that they could substantiate was the furnishing liquor to a minor.
What evidence would have changed that on his cell phone?
Well, we could have found some texts between some of the parties involved and Sam, maybe apologizing for something or making some type of statements that would lead more toward culpability.
It sounds like you're fairly confident there was wrongdoing, and in this particular instance, those people may never be held accountable.
That's true. Yeah, like as I mentioned, there's some things that I think we don't know. There's things we weren't told, and so I think there are some people out there that were more directly responsible for Sam's death, and will have to carry that with them the rest of their life.
An agonizing reality for Sam's family and the hope of justice for their son.
None of it can bring Sam back.
Now, I'm told there are options for smaller police departments like Pullman to help with this type of technology problem. Larger metro departments like Spokane Police or even the Spokane County Sheriff's Office can sometimes assist. Also, the Washington State Patrol told me it often helps out departments with limited resources, and even the FBI can sometimes step in to use its state-of-the-art technology. Now, when I asked Chief Jenkins about whether or not he pursued any of those options, this is what he told me. He said he's confident that with the attempts by our regional partners and Celebrate, he says we have exhausted that path. Now, the National Organization of Alpha Tau Omega also issued a statement after Sam's death saying it does not condone hazing or providing alcohol to minors, and that any individuals who do so should be held accountable for violating the law. The Pullman chapter of this fraternity has now been suspended at WSU at least until 2026.
We obtained body camera footage from the Pullman Police Department. It shows the immediate aftermath after Martinez was found dead that morning as officers responded to the scene and began interviewing members of the fraternity. The police also found video from the social media app Snapchat showing the event from the night before. It's giving us a previously unseen look and first-hand account of the events that led to the death of a 19-year-old beloved by his family and friends.
Sam was he was such a goofball. He could make everybody laugh, but he had this really loving, gentle side that I really loved about Sam, and that's how we connected a lot.
Loving, dazzling, a gentle soul, all words used by Sam Martinez's friends and family to describe the late 19-year-old from Bellevue. Nicole Ballard says she knew Martinez for 8 years and considered him to be her best friend before his death on November 12th, 2019.
Sam was a huge part of my life. He was like a little brother that I didn't have and a best friend.
Martinez was found dead the morning after an event at the Alpha Tau Omega fraternity chapter at Washington State University. The Whitman County coroner determined that he died of alcohol poisoning. Through a public records request, CREM 2 obtained body camera footage and Snapchat videos used as part of the Pullman Police Department's criminal investigation. Videos on Snapchat from Martinez and others show the events the night before Martinez died. It was Big Little Night, an event where freshman fraternity members are paired up with an older member who acts as their mentor or family. That night, Martinez found out his big brother would be Wesley Oswald. Oswald's interview with police was captured by a body camera.
They all showed up. I had 2 littles, him and another guy, and I had a half cow. And I never once forced him to drink. I just had the half cow. And, he took a good amount of pulls, and he seemed like he was okay.
According to those who spoke with police, it was tradition for a big brother to pass down the family drink to their little brother. Police heard allegations that the older members of the fraternity possibly hazed the pledges or new members, including by trying to get them as drunk as possible, according to police records describing interviews with some of Martinez's friends.
It was Big and Little Reveal night, and all the pledges were hazed to drink a fifth of vodka each, and heard that he was just left alone for a long period.
Some of that drinking was caught on Snapchat shot by Martinez himself, but another fraternity member, Finn Anderson, told police it was a choice for the younger members.
If they want to do it, it's Big Little Night, so you're like, yes, we have alcohol, it's gonna be fun, we're gonna hang out and drink all night and stuff like that.
Records show witnesses told police Martinez was heavily intoxicated by about 10 p.m. After originally laying him down in fraternity president Luke Hawksford's room, Martinez was moved by Oswald and a group of freshmen.
So we just took him down to the chapter room, laid him down on the couch, put his head down so he stood up, like he wouldn't choke on it. And then I checked him at least 3 or 4 times just tonight, so did other people, and every time he was asleep. And then I just got woken up this morning and he wasn't.
Martinez would be found dead, face down on the couch the next morning. Ballard got a call from her sister with the tragic news.
I was very shocked to see that it was Sam that had passed. He just he has this light that you just want to be around, and it's beautiful, and I feel so lucky that I got to spend so much of Sam's very short life with him.
His blood alcohol level was 0.372. Heavy drinking was part of what Ballard says was a toxic culture that Sam had described.
He shared with me some of the stuff that was happening at Alpha Tau Omega and just the terrible environment that it created. I think Sam was very stubborn sometimes, and so he was always saying that he could do it, that he could get through it.
WSU suspended the fraternity until May 2026. In the loss of recognition letter, WSU made a strong statement, saying if the allegations were true, Alpha Tau Omega had violated the university's hazing rules. But Hawksford, the fraternity president, refuted this to police the morning Martinez was found.
Yeah, we've been really trying to ever since I've been president, we've been trying to crack down on hazing, because my freshman year we went through a membership review, which you might know about, and I don't know all the reasons for it, but part of that was hazing. I got hazed. So we know what happens when you do that.
But no one has faced hazing charges. The statute of limitations ran out by the end of the investigation. Pullman Police Chief Gary Jenkins said this was due to a number of factors. The largest were trouble accessing applications on Martinez's cell phone and witnesses not being fully cooperative. But 15 people, including Oswald, Anderson, and Hawksford, are facing charges of furnishing liquor to a minor, a gross misdemeanor in Washington punishable by a year in jail, a $5,000 fine, or both. For Sam's friends and family, the charges don't mean justice is being served.
It is not justice for us. We live every day with the loss of our Sam, and it's just unbearable. These charges are very minor charges against these 15 people, and none of it can bring Sam back.
Wesley Oswald and Luke Hawksford declined to comment for our story. An Alpha Tau Omega spokesperson also declined to comment because of ongoing litigation. Our attempts to reach Finn Anderson were unsuccessful. One of the 15 suspects is set to make an appearance this Wednesday. The rest are currently set to appear on July 9th. In the newsroom, Ian Smay, KREM 2 News.